The classical era of Islamic jurisprudence, fiqh, was constructed for contiguous, unified empires. It functioned through clear, direct leadership governing a singular, vast jurisdiction. Today, that geopolitical map is partitioned into dozens of distinct nation-states, separated by hard physical and political borders. This fragmentation is enforced by overarching secular global institutions and international financial systems that dictate the rules of engagement across those borders. The classical texts detailing the fiqh of leadership, Siyasa Shari'a, provide meticulous rulings for their own eras, but they lack the explicit vocabulary to address the mechanics of modern international law, fiat currencies, or transnational assemblies. Because the architecture of the state itself has been rewritten, classical administrative rulings cannot be directly applied to modern globalism. The legal baseline has changed to a degree that a simple copy-paste of historical edicts fails. This gap creates two opposing methodological errors. The first is a literalist trap, where scholars reject modern political systems because democratic republics or the UN are not explicitly named in the Quran or Sunnah. The second is a secular trap. Facing the complexity of modern statecraft, some jurists abandon Islamic jurisprudence entirely, importing civil law under the assumption that Sharia cannot govern a 21st century state. To resolve this friction, jurists must develop with the source text terms Tadweel Islami, Islamic Internationalization. Tadweel Islami provides a structural taxonomy designed to map Sharia precisely onto contemporary realities. Saving Islamic political theory requires moving past reactionary, isolated fatwas to architect a proactive legal ontology capable of processing the modern world. Before we can map the new taxonomy, we have to establish the jurisprudential methodology that makes it possible. If we process modern inputs through strict textualism, searching only for explicit, literal precedents from the 7th century, the system hits a dead end. The alternative methodology, championed historically by the Hanafi school, relies on the extraction of Dawabit Kulliyyah, universal principles. Rather than searching for a novel name, Dawabit Kulliyyah evaluates the underlying purpose and utility of a system. Take, for example, a global military alliance. You cannot find a specific hadith detailing international joint command structures or transnational defense pacts. But under universal principles, this alliance is evaluated legally based on its adherence to treaties, its execution of justice, and its capacity to protect life. Applying these universal frameworks is the only valid method for extracting sound Islamic legal rulings for inventions that did not exist during the classical era. Using this methodology, the author outlines a bespoke, 7-part legal taxonomy designed to process geopolitical complexity. Node 1 is the Fiqh of Lands, Fiqh al-Aradi. This is the jurisprudence of physical sovereignty. It tackles the core legal questions of physical space. Who holds the authority to establish modern borders? And what is the legal status of non-Muslim settlements placed on Muslim lands by secular treaties? Note 2 moves outward to the Fiqh of Public Relations, Fiqh al-Alaik al-Amma, the jurisprudence of macro-international interactions. This category governs the legality of joining organizations like the UN, signing global trade treaties, and defining the rules of engagement with non-Islamic states. These public relations are essential to codify because complete geopolitical isolation in a globalized economy is both legally and practically impossible. Together, these first two nodes establish the physical and diplomatic boundaries of a modern Islamic state entity. Node 3 is the Fiqh of Rights and Entitlements, Fiqh al-Hukuk wa al-Istihaq. This node evaluates the friction that occurs when secular international human rights mandates dictate policies that directly contradict mandatory Islamic law. Node 4 turns inward. This is the Fiqh of Government, Fiqh al-Hukuma, the internal design of state power. Here, the taxonomy evaluates the legitimacy of republics versus monarchies, the structure of parliamentary assemblies, and the critical rules regarding rebellion against secularly imposed leaders. As jurists categorize these systems, the author issues a critical warning regarding muqarana, the comparative study of Islamic schools of thought. Foreign adversaries actively exploit strict sectarian divisions over governance. When scholars weaponize jurisprudential differences against one another, they keep the Islamic world fractured. Without a balanced, comparative approach to governance and rights, these internal debates cease to be academic and become active geopolitical vulnerabilities. Node 5 addresses that fragmentation directly. It is the Fiqh of Islamic Relations, Fiqh al-Islamiyya, outlining the legal mechanisms for Pan-Islamic unity. The primary mandate of this node is to legally dismantle the artificial secular nationalism that divides Muslim populations along ethnic or regional lines. Moving down to the local level, Node 6 introduces the Fiqh of Private Relations, Fiqh al-Khassa. This governs civic duties, social contracts, and ethical commerce as they apply within neighborhoods and municipalities. Finally, Note 7 completes the network, the Fiqh of Living and Housing, Fiqh al-Aish wa al-Taskin. This note specifically addresses minority jurisprudence. It details how an individual Muslim maintains legal compliance while living entirely under non-Islamic jurisdiction. With all 7 nodes active, the taxonomy scales to match the modern world. It provides a legal framework capable of evaluating a UN treaty at the macro level down to the daily civic life of a minority citizen. We now have a fully built, interconnected legal ontology. When we look at the modern geopolitical landscape, we see a chaotic web of overlapping jurisdictions, trade dependencies, and secular legal codes. But when we apply the 7-part taxonomy as an analytical overlay, that chaos is translated into a structured system. Every treaty, border dispute, and civic duty finds its exact legal category. This systematic approach eliminates the need to issue scattered, reactionary fatwas every time an isolated political incident occurs. Tadweel Islami transitions Islamic jurisprudence into a proactive organizing force capable of processing modern complexity. The survival and application of Islamic law today does not depend on finding 7th century texts that explicitly name 21st century inventions. The true engine of legal adaptability is the rigorous application of universal frameworks, Dawabit Kulliyyah. This taxonomy allows Muslims to engage with global systems on their own terms, maintaining functional integration without compromising their core principles. This framework functions as a blueprint for modern statecraft in a globalized era. This architectural approach demonstrates how Islamic law can maintain its internal logic while addressing the specific challenges of modern governance.